All right, joined now by my guy Shamit Dua, who's our New Orleans correspondent at In the Know, runs his own Substack In the Know as well as the In the Know podcast. Shamit, thank you so much for hopping on, man. 4-4 record for New Orleans so far, but lost the last three in a row, and it feels like the average margin of loss right now is it's not very close. Is what I'll say. What's going on? What happened? What like the team started off so well?
Yeah, in classic New Orleans Pelicans fashion, they got a couple games with a lot of their main guys together, and then game three, there's no Brandon Ingram. He's out for a few games. They miss Zion in one of those games. CJ McCollum ends up being diagnosed with a pneumothorax, just a collapsed lung. So they're fighting for their lives, and to kind of put it in perspective, they've started two-way player Matt Ryan, who they signed like a week ago. They have started two-way player Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who they signed like 2 days ago. Rookie Jordan Hawkins is getting starts. So it's kind of they're fighting this war of attrition at the moment, and trying to keep their head above water. And if I'll take 4-4 given the circumstances.
It seems completely fair. And then, like we were talking about kind of before the pod, just surviving it, getting through it. It's just kind of the early season difficulties where you already come into the beginning of the year without Trey Murphy, without Jose Alvarado. Sounds like Jose should be coming back here relatively soon, but it's still probably difficult, especially when CJ kind of goes down with what many would probably classify as an ambiguous injury. But he has had something like this before. How similar is this? What's the latest really on CJ McCollum?
They announced an update that it's healing well, and they'll announce another update when it's appropriate. So it's kind of a non-update, but just the kind of buzz around the team is that it's supposed to be less serious than the one he had the previous time. And the previous time, he ended up missing 6 weeks in 18 games. And so I don't know to what degree of less serious it is. I know we haven't heard about any procedure. From what I understand, I'm not medical, so if medical folks watching this, please give me some grace here. But from what I understand is if it's like a fully collapsed lung, they insert a chest tube and make sure it inflates properly. But it sounds like they didn't have to do that this time, and it's kind of like reinflating on its own again. We don't have the full details on it, but that's kind of the understanding at the moment. But who knows? I'm sure the team will release more details when they feel appropriate on the specifics of that.
Yeah, and then like it is a personal thing, probably a little bit more personal than an ankle injury or even just like a sprain here or there. It's something that I think they probably want to keep close to the vest for obvious reasons. So, but in the meantime, while he's gone, you mentioned Jordan Hawkins. You mentioned Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Good Lord.
It's a mouthful.
It quite is. JRE, if you will.
JRE.
Who else do you think needs to kind of step up in CJ's absence? Because already Trey Murphy's out and already Jose Alvarado's out. So is this just more pressure on Zion and Brandon Ingram individually? Is there somebody else that you're looking to in this moment?
Well, it starts with their main guys for sure, and Zion is currently welcoming his daughter into the world, and so he's away from the team, and I'm not sure how long he will be, but I'm sure he's gonna take as long as needed. It's a big milestone for a first time father. Brandon Ingram is the other guy who has just not had a great start to the season, and when guys are out, the onus falls on the stars to perform. We've seen top tier guys drag, hospital casts of players to winning records, to like find a way to win every single night. We've seen Jokic the season, like Murray was missing and MPJ was out, and you're starting Facundo Campazzo and there's Austin Rivers, like that kind of stuff, and you're winning 48 games. So the pressure really comes from the top, and then it flows downward because the role players are role players, and they might have some good nights, they might have some bad nights, but like you look for consistency from your stars, and the Pelicans will need more out of them moving forward.
Yeah, and shout out to Nuggets legend Matt Ryan, who was on the summer league team for the Nuggets, and just another guy that obviously we should mention. He's had some great moments, and we've talked about this before. Surrounding Zion with shooting when he's back and when he's ready, surrounding him with shooting has been really really good. And I watched this team in person when New Orleans and Denver played against each other, and was really impressed, obviously, with the flamethrower shooting from Jordan Hawkins throughout the game, but also Matt Ryan kind of dancing around the perimeter. And you can absolutely see a Trey Murphy fitting into that, CJ McCollum when he comes back fitting into that. There's a lot of guys that can fit into that system, and it feels like that is sort of the direction that they should go. We've done the Zion versus Brandon Ingram kind of style dance before, so I'm not going to make you do it again. But just what have you liked about the floor spacing so far?
Yeah, when that second unit comes in, or I guess now it's the first unit or whatever it is now with guys being out. But when guys were healthy, it was a second unit. It was Jordan Hawkins and Matt Ryan off the bench. It was CJ as a starter in the stagger group, and they would mix in Herb, JV, Zion, just kind of a combination of people in those units. But particularly when the three shooters checked in, right? They're honestly the only three shooters in the roster the Pelicans have healthy at the moment, or can't even say that about CJ anymore. But when those guys checked in, it flipped games around because they played with a pace and intensity that the starting group was struggling to replicate. Just a lot of selfless pushing the tempo, passing the ball, relocating, driving, kicking, that kind of stuff, and not and working to find like the best shot. There was just like a level of trust that, hey, we're all good shooters, right? So as long as it gets to one of us and we're open, like it's going to be a good possession. And I thought Zion fit in really, really good with that group. Um, and the sample was like really small, but when he's out there, like that unit's shooting 75% from the two, and and
Yeah.
and I mean they're shooting things like 47% from three, and that number is there's a huge amount of variance involved in samples this small, so we're not taking any kind of predictive value out of this at the moment, but like visually you could see it. You're like, oh my God, this is what it looks like with Zion in space, right? This is what it looks like when shooters are flying around. It looks really good. And I wish I could say Brandon Ingram has adjusted similarly to Zion. He just hasn't. And I think you saw it a little bit in the Denver game. Pelicans were red hot from three. Brandon Ingram checks in. Denver's like, we're fine letting him hit mid-range shots after mid-range shots, or attempting mid-range shots after mid-range shots. And I don't know what the disconnect is, but I think he sees that space and he's like, oh, it's for me, right? It's for me. I'm going to get going. And all of a sudden, the threes that you're creating, the rim shots that you're creating, are turning into 2-point jumpers. And even when you're hitting, it's like a coin flip, like in terms of like average expected value of that possession, right? You're rarely going to be better than 50%. And when the Pelicans are that hot from three, Denver and other teams just are going to be happy. You're going to be happy to see the mid-range shot, and I think that's where I'd like to see some improvement from Brandon Ingram, is kind of work to find the best possession, like best decision in that possession.
Oh, and the thing that came to mind with me when kind of hearing you say that was just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should with Brandon Ingram's mid range shooting, where he is a supremely talented mid range shooter. There's no question about that. He's got a game, he's got a bag, but breaking it out, you don't always have to go to that, especially when things are working, when things are running really well. And it feels more often than not that he does settle for those possessions that slow things down, that kind of bog things down. And you add in JV, Jonas Valanciunas, and Herb Jones, who, like, the spacing with those guys obviously is not going to be the same. And you start to see why some of those units haven't really worked so well. So
Right.
I'm curious to see when they kind of loop back in Trey Murphy and CJ McCollum into this thing, how those kind of pan out, what they're going to be looking for. There's a lot of staggers and a lot of fun lineups that they can get to if everybody was healthy. We will see whether that's actually going to be something that manifests. Is that the only thing that you kind of need to turn things around here? You said you're pretty happy with 4-4. It is just health what you're waiting for at this point?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I think one, being able to get your best players back on the court is going to produce wins, right? Like, this is a deep team. It's a good team. They've been struggling to figure out their fits, but despite all that, like they have a lot of talent across the board, and so on any given night they have a chance to win, right? Getting Trey Murphy back is just going to be a huge boost because there isn't a guy like him on the roster. Sure, Matt Ryan can hit threes. Sure, Jordan Hawkins is an incredible movement shooter. Trey Murphy can go and dunk it on you, right? He can put the ball on the floor. He can dunk it on you. He can switch across multiple different positions. It's just a different style of player that they're sorely missing. So in even the guys that are available, Larry Nance just does not look like he is himself at the moment. Kyra Lewis, unfortunately, I don't think I think he's been fine. I don't have anything negative to say about him, but like Jose Alvarado is going to come and take those minutes and probably take it up a notch, and so it's just things like that where you're like, okay, like, any week now, like these guys are going to come back. I think we're still like 2 or 3 weeks out for a lot of those guys, but it is one of those things where like once the cavalry comes, then they can start experimenting, they can start growing, they can start really trying to make adjustments. Right now, it's whoever is available. There's no adjustment to be made. It's, are you healthy? You're playing.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a lot of Band-Aids, a lot of trying to just survive the moment, and hopefully they can get to that place. Hopefully they can do that. Real quick before we get out of here, over the course of these first 8 games, who is the best team and the best player that you've seen so far covering the Pels?
By far the Nuggets and Jokic. He just asserted his will on that game in a way only Jokic can. And, I kind of going back to Brandon Ingram, like taking twos. You're not going to win a battle of twos against Nikola Jokic. You're just not. And Jokic is going to hit the twos and he's going to create the threes. And it's just like, all right, cool. Like there's nothing you can really do about it.
That game, one of the most masterful performances from Joker I've ever seen. He just did like poor Jonas Valanciunas. He put him right under the rim. I couldn't believe it.
Oh my gosh. The Pelicans fans were going crazy because the Pelicans are trying out some small units and they're like, just put Jonas back in. He had 4 fouls. Like, just put him back in. Like, you can't be, like we need a big body on him. They put Jonas back in. He is summarily dismissed in like 40 seconds. Just picks up 2 fouls him out the game, and it's just like Jokic ate him alive, and I feel bad just because I like Jonas Valanciunas. But like as soon as he checked back in, it's like that. Yeah, I think teams have to try to find a way to get the most amount of offense on the court against the Nuggets, and that's kind of got to be the game plan. The Pelicans in the first half are hitting all these threes. Like, yeah, you got to hope you have a good shooting night and you're generating good shots because you're not. I don't think there's a guy out there that can stop the Joker. They just don't.
Yeah, it's at this point he's been doing pretty well. I mean, Minnesota's the only team that's really given them much trouble, so. We will see what happens with that. But hey, really excited to see whether the Pelicans can get healthy, and really excited as we kind of go into our next check-in. I'm hoping that we get to talk about a full roster. He is Shamit Dua. Make sure to read his Substack In the N.O, as well as listen to the In the N.O podcast. Shamit, thank you so much for hopping on and sharing some time, man. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.